Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to look at how to solve an absolute value equation. So you've probably solved a lot of different equations and inequalities in the past, but maybe you've never solved an equation that had an absolute value in it. So I want to show you how to do that today. First of all, let's talk about some of the properties of absolute value. First of all, that A and B in all of our examples here have to be real numbers. Okay, no imaginary numbers going on here. But these properties hold true all the time with absolute value. So first of all, number one here, the absolute value of a number always has to be greater than 0. That's what absolute value does, is it essentially removes the negative. So there's no such thing as a negative number after we take the absolute value of that. So absolute value of any number is always going to be a positive number. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, number 2 over here. So check this out. For this one, it doesn't matter if you take the absolute value of the negative number or the positive number, you're going to get the same result. So for example, the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. That was supposed to be an equal sign. But the absolute value of 5 is 5. And the absolute value of positive 5 is also 5. So that's all that property is saying. And I don't know if my face is in the way here. It very well could be. But no, actually it's good. It's good. Cool. So just remember that. Absolute value of the negative, positive number, you get the same result. Okay, this third quality down here says that the absolute value of a number times a number is the same as the absolute value of the first number times the absolute value of the second number. So let's say we have the absolute value, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Okay, let's say we have the absolute value of 5 times 3. Absolute value of 5 times 3. We can rewrite that as the absolute value of 5 times the absolute value of 3. So those are the same thing. Okay, and it works the same way with division. So absolute value of 5 over 3 is the same as the absolute value of 5 divided by the absolute value of 3. So just realize that that is something that you can do. Okay. Also, our denominator can't be equal to 0 because you can't divide by 0. Alright, let's go down now and actually apply these properties. So let's look at how to solve an absolute value equation. So to solve an absolute value equation, really what we're going to do is we're going to split the equation into two parts. So as you can see here, if we have this absolute value equation, then we're going to split it into two equations. So the first equation will look exactly the same, just without the absolute value bars. And the second equation will look similar, except that whatever is on the other side of the equation, opposite of the absolute value, we're going to change that to its negative counterpart. So for example, let's say we have the absolute value of 5x minus 2. And we want, let's set that equal to, I don't know why we keep getting these z's. Let's set that equal to 7. Okay, to solve this equation, we're going to split this absolute value equation into two separate equations. So we would solve the equation 5x minus 2 equals 7. So that's our first equation. All right, that's our first equation. And then we'd also solve the equation 5x minus 2. You don't change the left side, or whatever side the absolute value is on. You don't change that side. You change the other side, the opposite side of the absolute value. So that would be negative 7. All right, so see the difference there? So we would split that absolute value equation into two separate equations. So equation 1 and equation 2. And then we would solve those equations. So we would potentially get two answers here. Now, notice this one specific thing. If c is less than 0, then the absolute value equation has no solutions. Because that goes back to our properties. Remember, the absolute value of a number can't be negative. So if we had the equation, let me just write another one in here. And I just realized you may not be able to see this whole second equation. So there you go. So our second equation, just notice that I made the 7 negative. Let's put in another equation here. Let's say we had this equation. So absolute value of 2x plus 5 equals negative 10. This wouldn't work because notice we've got the absolute value of a number, 2x plus 5, is equal to a negative number. Remember our properties, we can't take the absolute value of something and get a negative. So this problem would be, there's no solution to that problem because it can't be equal to a negative number. Okay, so just realize that. Let's look at how would we solve an equation if we had two absolute values. So let's say we have absolute value on the left side of the equation and an absolute value on the right side. So we've got two pairs of absolute values. Well, it's actually very similar, our process here. So what we're going to do is we're going to split it again into two separate equations, and we're going to solve. It's almost exactly the same as the previous when we only had one absolute value in the equation. We're going to split the equation into two, and notice we're going to make one of the sides negative compared to the original. All right, so let's say, for example, we have 5x minus 2 equals the absolute value of 10x plus 4. If we wanted to solve that equation, we would split it into two separate equations. So let me make sure that y'all can see this. So first of all, we would have let's try that again. We'd have 5x minus 2 equals 10x plus 4. That would be our first equation. All right, and then our second equation, so notice we didn't change anything there. All we did with the first equation is remove the absolute values. So we'll solve that and we'll get an answer. And then our second equation, and I guess I'm just going to write it down below so you can see the difference. Let's change the thickness here. All right, so the second equation will have 5x minus 2. So we're not going to change one side. But then the other side, we're going to make the whole thing negative, the whole second side negative. So you can either put it in parentheses like we did right here and make the whole thing negative, or you can change the sign of each term. So for this one, we'll change the sign of first term, so it'll be negative 10x, and then change the sign of the second term, so it's minus 4. Okay, and then we solve. So notice the difference between these two equations, equation 1 and equation 2. All right, notice the difference. We just changed the signs of one side of the equation to where if it's positive, it becomes negative. If it was negative, it would become positive. Okay, but we solved those two equations. We get an answer, and we're done. All right, so that's how to solve equations with absolute values. Whether it's one absolute value or two absolute values, it's a very similar process. Watch my next video, and I'm going to go over some examples and solve them all the way through so that you can see kind of what this would look like maybe in real life or with some actual practice problems. But thanks guys for watching, and I hope y'all have a good day, and I'll see y'all in the next video.